while allocating resources to purchase an entire
We are. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. Hey, welcome to the NAP, the no answer period, where we cover the preface, the question period, prefaced by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. The NAP precedes question period by 45 minutes, and we'll cover the lower house until the government decides to stop showing up. We also keep score, described in the description below. There we go. Sound check works right. We're streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube. So please give us a like, follow, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Chat is up. Feel free to comment. I don't care what you say. And comments drive the algorithm when I'm not driving it down with my forbidden words. So let's get straight into the intro. And then we will be right back with the show. Let's make sure I get this right here. There we go.
while allocating resources to purchase an entire hotel for asylum seekers.
Wow. Unbelievable.
What a dumpster fire. Is the minister content putting fraudsters in the driver's seat of Canada's immigration system?
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Speech yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
The Minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears.
It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
All of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Know that this government has their back and we will continue to do there's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Deficits are driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer.
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Move on, man, move on. Point of order. There was some very unparliamentary language that we heard today.
Sets us up well for the new world order.
Exporting vehicles to Europe. Mr. Speaker, more vehicles were stolen in Canada last year, including 2 of the justice ministers, than were exported to Europe last year. We actually have a plan. It's a plan to get tariff-free access to the United States. It will boost auto production. It is supported by Unifor Local 222 said, finally a common sense plan to restore auto production. Why don't they get on board and stop with this managed decline?
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
My comment by telling the truth that the answer was bovine excrement.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about the new cohort that's being hired. Is that part of
the 1,000 that were promised or the 3,400 that we lost, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals can't distinguish between the two. Let's look at the stats. Violent crime up 55%, failure. Sexual assault up 76%, failure. Gun crime up 130%, failure. Extortion up 330%, failure. Mr. Speaker, the only thing that's going down are the number of police officers in Canada. Why can't these Liberals get their acts together and hire the police they promised?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I really feel sad for that member who always sees her cup half empty. We have a plan. We have
Hey, what's going on? Laptop eye. There we go. We're back. Well, we have a lot to cover today. So much to cover, in fact, I doubt we'll cover it all before we actually get the question period. So let's start off with something to lighten up the mood. Perhaps let's look at a fantastic truck driver being observed down in the States.
Watch him cause a big wreck backing out.
Oh no, I'm videoing it all. The whole tire's coming off. He's still driving, y'all. Y'all, is he gonna back into me? Is he like a reckless, like, what do you call it, driver? Or crazy truck driver, or whatever the word is? Y'all, he's gonna hit the hydrant. Y'all, he's gonna hit the hydrant. He's fixing to hit the hydrant. He's fixing to hit the hydrant. Oh shoot. Go ahead and wait on him and get him done. I'm videoing it. Yeah, get him done. Somebody call the police. Somebody call the police. Somebody's got to call. Yeah. Just call real quick. Okay, he's stopped. Maybe he's done now.
I was waiting for that water to go.
Well, his boss will be happy. He saved the tire. Indeed. Strange enough. Well, here we are back at question period, or just before question period. A lot of things happening in the House. Already suspended meeting here of the Standing Committee on Health. And other committees have been adjourned, some not started. But the House is sitting. They are in progress. Bills are being rammed through. We will get into those. As, of course, if you're new to the Parliament, there is an order paper published every day, order and notice paper. This is Stephen McKinnon's group, the staff that belong to that part of Parliament, and they put together who gets to speak on what bills are going to be debated, who gets their turn, especially during question period, who gets to do their business and at what time. So, and of course, any questions that are asked that require written response, they will be tracked in there as well. Of course, we always have all our intros as separate videos on our sites if you want to find them and watch them, because if you're watching us on Rumble, it might be a little pixelated, and I'm sure we'll probably have some stream issues, because we always do. All right, let's review what happened yesterday in Parliament. Well, it was the first day back, another week off from lower house to work the constituencies. It as was the focus for most of the question period, the 108,000 job losses, with the 1,000 expected losses at Algoma Steel yesterday. The Bloc's first concern was the constitutional crisis the Liberals are creating by going after Quebec's use of the Notwithstanding clause, which the ministers were asked questions, but of course they won't respond on it because it's before the courts. Now, this is a crisis, a constitutional crisis that the Liberals have created. They could have left well enough alone, but no, they need to have complete power, complete control over everything. And that means that any kind of independence that the provinces might have in regulating laws that they disagree with, that are being pushed down from the top down, well, no, we can't have the provinces using common sense to circumvent authoritarian central rule, can we? So that's why they're going after it, under the guise of whatever reason. It's never really about what they say. It's always about power and control. So this travesty is a dangerous precedent, allowing the courts to set law and override legislatures. In this case, those who have created the current Constitution in 1982. There have been a lot of laws passed that have used the Notwithstanding clause, and realistically, one of the most egregious laws that was actually passed in Quebec, even before the Constitution was brought back home in 1982, was Bill 101 in Quebec, that pretty well turned every English-speaking person there into a second-class citizen. Now, of course, they kept those same language laws in place by invoking the Notwithstanding clause. Old age security, they also spoke of course, every day they have to bring up the Quram software problems for the OAS because the Liberals never did any concurrent activity in rolling out the new system while the old system was still working to ensure that there were no issues. Because after all, we don't care if they hurt people along the way. Yeah, it's kind of modernized. Get with it, folks. That's basically their attitude. Crime will get another break as Canada's federal police have lost another 3,400 members. Now, when this was brought up in Parliament yesterday about losing 3,400 cops, are these the federal force numbers of the RCMP? Or these police across Canada? Because I figured maybe the numbers might even be a little higher. But it points to the basic problem that you're not getting troops in the boots. Liberals, people are not joining your Canadian Armed Forces. People are not joining your RCMP because they don't see they don't like what they see in the government, what the government represents. So why would they put on a uniform that represents people that are abusing their own citizens, robbing them blind, taxing them into desperateness? Okay? Well, maybe that's, but of course they don't listen to that, right? What's their automatic reaction? Oh, we'll just bring in mercenaries to fill those boots. We'll just bring in more people from outside the country. We'll pay them to come in. Yeah, come in. But still, they don't seem to fill those ranks. Now, they mentioned a number that maybe only 6% of 1,000 replacements that they keep bragging about that are coming out of the schoolhouse are actually going to make it. And I could tell you, as a former instructor in the Canadian Armed Forces when I was at the schoolhouse, the only way that you got a high percentage of people out the door is because you have a chief instructor who's a political appointee to ensure that the numbers coming out meet the requirements, whether they're good to go or not. If they could do that in Canadian Armed Forces, I'm sure they could do it in the RCMP and in the CBSA as well, but it's not going to cover their losses, which they really refuse to acknowledge. Massive immigration fraud has been exposed again, with the ministry only investigating 2,000 of the 150,000 known student immigration fraud cases, wanting to spend millions on hotels to house immigrants. The same disastrous cycle of social decay we have seen in the United Kingdom. In fact, they're trying to get away from buying houses for the migrants to stay in here in Canada by just renting out or purchasing this hotel or whatever it is they're going to do. But really, why are we doing this? People who wanted to immigrate into Canada in the past used to be able to do this on their own dime and contribute to society, but no, not under this uncontrolled mass immigration scheme that the Liberals have impacted Canada with. Now, Kevin Lemurer had responded, crazy Kevin, to an order question regarding the Prime Minister Carney's personal engagement with the Communist Z regarding human rights abuses. And the answer had been no, in writing. And Anita Anand yesterday pulled the 1984 revision of history and stated the record had been corrected. I think I have a clip on that. Yes, let's watch that now. Sure, I don't have the laptop by.
Country.
Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has been caught misleading Canadians. After his trip to Beijing, he claimed human rights violations and foreign interference were discussed in meetings with CCP leaders. However, government documents I requested revealed that neither of these topics were discussed in any of the bilateral meetings. But today, the Prime Minister is trying to change his story yet again. Canadians want to know, why can't this Prime Minister stick to his story?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr.
Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary return in question was submitted in error and will be corrected at the earliest opportunity. The Prime Minister has been clear while in Beijing, Canada's position on areas of concern, including human rights, were raised proactively at multiple levels, Mr. Speaker, including by the Prime Minister and his counterparts. I also raised the matter with my counterpart while in China, along with other matters. And I want to emphasize that Canada is a world leader in advancing human rights and the rules-based international order. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Well, more on that. I'm not sure if any of that is true because there seems to be still more confusion, and we'll get to that after. So let's move on to our next piece here. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms have announced something here. A public discourse and the marketplace of ideas should not be chilled by bad actors weaponizing the human rights process. Lawyers funded by the Justice Center are therefore offering to provide free legal assistance to individuals facing recent, within the past 60 days, BC human rights complaints filed by Jessica Yaniv Simpson related to their freedom of expression. Yes. So emboldened by a recent decision fining somebody $750,000 for hurting somebody's feelings in regards to gender status, this person has decided to start suing everybody. Bringing complaints against them to the Human Rights Tribunal out of BC. So Justice Center is like, okay, enough of this. So good for them. They do so much good work. If you have the means, they need your support. Let's move on to the next story. Here we have Table Salt reminding us that the UK Girl Guides have banned transgender girls from the organization, giving any existing transgender guides until September 6th to leave. Well, as always, the pendulum eventually swings back. So, speaking of pendulums, one pendulum that's swinging in the wrong direction is one that is taking people out of the country. Let's listen to a bit of this. This is from Wake Up Canada News.
Those who can leave Canada are leaving. The rest will stay and pay the price. Welcome back to Wake Up Canada News. I'm Brad Wilder. Canada finally found a way to boost exports. It's exporting its best people. A Bank of Canada study quietly revealed something that should alarm every Canadian. You see, 40% of Canadians capable of reaching top 1% U.S. earnings have already left for the USA. Another 30 to 50% of the next highest earners are gone too so far. Now think about that for a second. This isn't the unemployed. This isn't the struggling. This isn't the average worker trying to get by. This is the most educated, most productive, highest earning Canadians. The people who build companies, perform surgeries, design technology, invest in business, and pay a massive share of the country's taxes. And they're leaving. And they're leaving for higher wages, lower taxes, cheaper housing, more opportunity, and an economy that actually rewards ambition instead of punishment.
Yep, absolutely everything that we warned you would happen in a country taken over by far-left ideology. And for the same reason, again, the people are not joining the services that represent the government because you have lost confidence in Canadians, liberals. You have lost confidence of the people who actually build this nation for the very fact that they are not joining you in service and that they are leaving the country. It's insane in the membrane, as I like to say. Well, our next story here, Mark Bohaichuk writes, the Napoleonic Marxist movement of the Bloc Québécois make a deal with their activist far-left authoritarian regime Liberal Party, make a backroom deal to move the chilling censorship bill C9 forward. This is extremely authoritarian that it gives the leftists accuse Trump of being Yet it's the Liberals that are MAGA-driven in their twisted definition. Canada needs to remove the neo-communist Liberal Party New World Order government before it's too late. Well, sorry, it already is too late. The cultural Marxists have already been in charge for 10 years, accumulating more debt than all other prior governments combined. And they are on their path to ensure that everyone is beholding to the state in one way or another. Line Advocacy writes, my Freedom of Information Act request on COVID-19 mandates is now before the Information Commissioner, or Commissar, shall we call them? A Canadian institution had redacted recommendations and advice they got on dropping mandates. Open quote, there is no factual information in the records that can be disclosed, close quote, they said. Can't make this up, he says. Again, working in darkness. Evil always flourishes in darkness, which is why they need to hide everything, which is why they don't want to open the books. But eventually, the truth always comes out. Canada will celebrate other cultures' holidays until it has no culture of its own left. Didn't they recently not celebrate Canada Day? Various cities are stopping to celebrate things that are celebrated all the time. Now they're saying, we can't celebrate that because of safety concerns. Yeah, it always comes down to safety. They always use safety in order to push forward their agenda. But, of course, doing this to celebrate in Mississauga, Bloc Tower being flash green, for Pakistan Republic Day. Yay, Pakistan Republic Day. Right, that's what we need to celebrate in Canada now, I guess. They're flying the flag, says Table Salt, of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan above Westminster Abbey in the UK. The UK is gone. It's up to her next of kin now. Yes, why is this flying on your on Westminster Abbey? It's just it's cultural takeover. Now, Northern Perspective had a quick post today on X regarding somebody that sent them an email saying that obviously they'd had enough and they weren't going to take it anymore, and they were going to shuffle off their mortal coil probably by their own hand. So, and this is not the first time they've encountered this email, so they had to contact somebody to go check on them. And they wanted to post this to say, we know things are tough, and but we're going to stay here to fight for Canada. So don't give up. And that's basically their call to arms, saying, don't feel alone in the fact that there are other people out here who see what the hell is going on, who see what is happening in Canada. So don't give up. And just go back to what I say at the beginning of my morning show every day, right? There are three simple things that you can do. And it all starts with one thing first, right? Which is to find yourself a higher power. And then every day, or as often as it takes, give thanks, pray for others, and ask for help. Let's try to get through the day. Post here by the food professor. The Standing Committee on Environment and Sustainable Development in Ottawa is currently studying the impact of industrial carbon tax. And who was invited to testify today, he says? Canadian Climate Institute. Arguably one of the most influential advocates of carbon pricing in the country, with strong ties to former minister and activist Stephen Guilbeault. Ah, yes, another guy who's pocketing money from Green Slash Fiend. Oh, sorry. You can see the little checklist. And we effective app. And just waiting for my stream software to get up. There we go. Come on. Holy poop. Output. Let's bring down a bit rate. So, not exactly the most balanced choice if the goal is an objective assessment. Of course not, because Liberals are known for not engaging the stakeholders. They will always engage somebody else that has been appointed to represent the stakeholders, which is usually somebody that doesn't really represent the stakeholders. This is an argument that was made yesterday in the lower house repeatedly, whereby The Conservatives kept talking about how they would speak with people who work the assembly line and auto assembly and telling them that the plan that they have forward, they all like it. And the Liberals would counter with saying, you didn't talk to anybody that matters. We've talked to the union heads. Okay. Well, we know how the union heads always not necessarily represent what is in the best interest of their own members, especially when it comes to spending union dues, let's just say. But they still need representation, I guess. Now, here is a story from the National Post of what happened to the Mark Carney who promised to make things better on this full comment podcast. Well, when he first became Prime Minister a year ago this month, Mark Carney vowed to improve affordability, build badly needed projects quickly, and make Canada more resilient and competitive in the face of U.S. President Donald Trump's trade antagonism. As William Robson, President Emeritus of the Seattle Institute, discusses with Ryan Lilly, the situation on all those fronts isn't much better and, in several respects, worse than before. Canada keep getting poorer. Our fiscal situation is worse. The investment climate remains uncompetitive. Projects we need aren't happening. And Carney's fiscal moves, from the GST grocery refund to green subsidies, are as economically misguided as the last guy's policy. Carney just can't blame Trump for it all. They say everyone is noticing how badly Carney is doing. Now, Barbara Ball, MBA, here writes, introducing another independent media outlet. Now, I believe Barbara was the one who was this Conservative candidate for the same riding that Carney won. She writes, Endocile Media has just published a detailed investigation into Mark Carney's troubling ties with Brookfield, titled Les conflits d'intérêts apparents de Mark Carney. 5 ans de faits documentés. We can read the whole full article here when they have the link. And of course, their site is bilingual. Yet another independent media in Canada, Outstanding. So, of course, they are primarily French. So is this Endocile Media? Regardless, the story is available in both official languages. And here we have full breakdown. So, we don't have enough time to cover all of those. We'll go for a few of them. All right, let's go right back to the beginning. Back machine goes here. 5 years of acquisitions at Brookfield, 3 meetings with executives from his former employer after his swearing in, an ethics commissioner confirming under oath the Prime Minister's future compensation is tied to Brookfield's success. Here, in order, is what has happened since 2021. On December 15, 2021, Brookfield finalized the acquisition of Modular Group for $5 billion, the world's largest provider of modular services, with 260,000 units in 25 countries. Mark Carney was then chairman of the board of Brookfield Asset Management. On September 14, 2025, as Prime Minister, he launched Build Canada Homes with a budget of $13 billion, placing modular construction at the heart of the program. The interval between the two events is less than 4 years. Da, da, da. Everything he does is to enrich himself. June to November 2022. The Transition Fund and Westinghouse, the two pillars. On June 22, 2022, Brookfield announced the closing of the $15 billion Brookfield Global Transition Fund, co-managed by Mark Carney. It is eligible for deferred interest payments linked to the fund's performance until 2032 to 2034, 7 years after the end of its potential mandate. Now, move forward to November 7th, 2023. Brookfield and Cameco finalized the acquisition of Westinghouse for $7.9 billion, financed by the same fund. Then move forward to October 23rd, 2025. Now that Mark Carney is Prime Minister, he invests $2 billion in small reactors in Darlington. The same month, Westinghouse signs an $80 billion partnership with the U.S. government. He's invested in that, right? Using his office to further his interests. Well, I think we will go ahead and cover all these tomorrow morning on Second Breakfast. I think these are really, really interesting to document, especially visually and video-wise, for people to go back to and listen. Right, let's move on to the next story here. David Creighton writes, read KR News, which is his Substack, most corrupt prime minister in Canadian history. Article link below. Does Mark Carney control the $2 trillion pensions he is making as part of his trade deals? Well, let's look at his Substack. For anyone watching the news, it is becoming increasingly apparent that Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney's so-called trade missions have many interesting coincidental ties to Brookfield Asset Management, as we just showed you at Indocil Media. The company Carney headed as chairman of the board before he ran for the Liberal leadership. Carney joined Brookfield in 2020 as vice chairman of and head of Transition Investing, co-leading their Global Transition Fund, and later becoming chairman of Brookfield. In 2025, Carney won the Liberal leadership in Canada's general election on April 28 to become the Prime Minister of Canada. Carney has literally at least 103 conflicts of interest, which we will show you later in this article. Now, I see that Creighton has also gone through and gotten a lot of this information on here. And yeah, here's that interesting one right there. In the UAE, November 21, 2025, Carney said, over the next year, we will take significant measures to elevate our relationship. The Minister of Finance will lead a delegation of Canada's pension funds. So you think your pensions are safe, do you? So this is the point that I believe Creighton is making in his article here, is that you think your funds are safe, but they might not be safe. I've said this before. He's not the first person to bring this up. The plan has always been Are we back? Yes. Okay, just dial down the bit one more. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. That should save us for a little bit more. So please go and visit Creighton at his article. Because if you think your pensions are safe, they're probably not, especially if they're here in Canada. Because the Liberals are set to steal everything that isn't bolted down. And even then, they'll bring a wrench to unbolt it and steal that too. Carney did not proactively raise human rights or foreign interference with Z, according to documents, writes CTV News. Now, of course, this is what was brought up in the lower house yesterday. And now this, of course, this post was published after the minister said that the release had been corrected. The information has been corrected. Right. The events have been corrected. So we're not really sure what the truth is anymore. Well, here's Blacklock reporter. Privy Council blames a nameless clerk for a document showing the Prime Minister was untruthful in discussing private talks with China leaders. Mark Carney is trying to change his story yet again. What's the timestamp on that one? That was today in the morning. Now, of course, this is subsequent to what Anne said. Obviously, I need to bring it more information. Why am I getting some issues here? There's no reason why they should chop. Not at all. You know, it's funny because if you're watching this on X, X is always clear for some reason. For the sun. Yeah, everything's fine there. Okay. So is he changing the truth yet again? We don't know. Now, of course, another one by Holly Doan a little later in the day error by anonymous clerk is to blame for records showing the Prime Minister was untruthful with reporters. The thing is, it was an order question, and Kevin Lamoureux provided a document with written words on it that basically said from the Privy Council that he didn't talk to these people. So if this was an error, how did that unnamed clerk get it so wrong in the first place? Right? How did they get it so wrong? I don't know. You can't trust them. Jeff Brown writes, I have been speaking to some of the people who live in Guelph and Toronto, just simply bringing up how they are feeling about what is going on politically and economically in Canada. I can honestly say I have never seen such a level of rage coming out of my fellow boomers in my life. And it's all directed at Trump and America. It's like their whole history of going to America, being grateful for America's protection, even loving parts of the U.S. has completely collapsed in the face of their belief that the U.S. want to make them the 51st state. They really took those memes and words seriously, and because nobody really explained why he was saying it, he doesn't hate Canada, he hates the last two globalist liberal administrations, it has congealed into rage. And then Carney looks like their savior, even though he is actually the globalist who wants to destroy Canada. It's a bloody mess. Indeed it is. And I've said it often enough. These people are completely brainwashed. It's hard to deprogram people that have been so effectively brainwashed. National Post has a post here. Ted Morton says, Carney demands Supreme Court strip provinces of rights to pass their own laws. Now, we were talking about that at the start of the show. And here Melissa says, the first of the deadlines for the pipeline deal between Mark Carney and the Alberta Premier Smith are not expected to be met. Yeah. Anyone with common sense could have predicted this. So apparently the pipeline deal is to miss the early deadlines. Well, of course, because we knew adding a fourth level of bureaucracy for projects in Canada was not going to speed anything up. All it was going to do is create positions for Liberals to appoint their own friends, to give them positions in this new bureaucracy, to give them tons of taxpayer money, the head of which is paid more than the Prime Minister himself. To do what? Not to get anything done, apparently. No, just to make themselves and their friends rich. Now, Danielle Smith writes, Canada needs to reform how we appoint judges to the superior trial courts and courts of appeal of the provinces, as well as the Supreme Court of Canada. I am joining with Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, and Quebec Premier François Legault in writing to Prime Minister Mark Carney requesting a new collaborative approach wherein our governments can meaningfully engage in filling judicial positions in our respective jurisdictions. Full letter below. No need to read that because we know what their answer is going to be. Yeah, here's your answer right there. Justice Minister Sean Fraser says he's open to having the provinces come and play a role in the judicial nomination process, but won't accept, won't accept the demand in a joint letter from 4 premiers to let the provinces choose the pool of candidates for Superior Court nominees. No. These are all our candidates, and you will pick one of them, whether you agree with all of them or not, because they're our candidates. They're only Liberal candidates. You don't get to pick anybody. No. We will choose. Our central authority, our central government of the Liberals will march into the sunset to make Canada great. Yeah, this guy is a clown. Remember, this is the same guy who wants to strip the provinces of their notwithstanding clause. This is the guy trying to destroy the Constitution, create a constitutional crisis. After, of course, he's created other crises with the housing, with the migration, and now with this. Everything they touch turns to shit. Gad Saad, well-known professor who's on a hiatus because of all the abuse he's been suffering at Concordia, had to take a break from there. There's so many anti-Semites being allowed into North America. He had to go take some time off for his safety. And of course, he is a well-known sarcastic man. So people have to understand who he is. He writes here, I wrote to John Cleese a while ago to invite him on my show for a chat. He never bothered to respond, even though I contacted him via a mutual friend. Perhaps now I'm thankful that our chat never occurred. And you can see the book he's holding, and it's this is in regards to a post that John Cleese had written saying, does this silly little man not understand that Islam is a very aggressive belief system threatening death to anyone who does not convert to Islam? And here we go. There's Gad Sad's original post, because he was posting something about Peter Lloyd here, who was quoting Sadiq Khan being Sadiq Khan. Anyways, Gad Sad's original post was, whenever Jews are attacked, typically by Muslims, it is important to redouble our efforts to fight against Islamophobia. And, which is like pure sarcasm, if you know Gad. But obviously, John Cleese did not. So that is our little bit of popular media for today. Now let's get on here to Joe Moose. I see that Scott Reed is trending, which is funny. We all know he's going to be backing the Liberals. And this is why, as David, oh yes, says Moose on a Loose, David says, has pointed out that Mr. Mark Carney has hired Scott Reed's son, Jack Reed. Scott Reed will never be able to criticize Prime Minister Mark Carney on CTV. Well, he doesn't. He doesn't do it now. He's like suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. And he constantly praises how well the Liberals do, regardless of what they do. They can do no wrong whatsoever, because he's been well ingrained in them. And of course, a good chunk of his paycheck is beholding to the Liberals as well. So, of course, there's nepotism happening. Now, Toronto Star writes, police are banning pro-Palestinian protesters from residential streets in this Toronto neighborhood. Well, better late than never. Right? And of course, there's always somebody down there that says, it's a slippery slope. Well, no, actually, the slippery slope was allowing them to get this far, to do what they've been doing, to terrorize people in their homes. And besides, why are there protests happening within residential areas? I mean, it's not like they're going to one specific home to protest, like one particular person living at that house. Yeah, I could see that happening. No, an entire neighborhood, because there's Jews living there. That's right. Let's go terrorize the Jews. Well, finally, the police have woken up. Somebody in the police have woken up, because I'm sure a lot of the rank and file wanted to do something for the longest time. But like everything else, what's happened in Canada for the past 11 years has turned everyone into not doing anything unless they've been ordered to, whether it's right or wrong. Bruce writes, Gary, and grab Gary, just said it will not be optional for police forces in Canada to enforce his government's firearm prohibition. Really? Okay, so 95% of the police forces have said pretty well, Golf Foxtrot, Yankee, Sierra, I guess you could say that way, but it's usually just GFY. Yeah, they're not interested in this gun grab, because they know collecting it from property owners who are legal is not going to help their cause in fighting crime. So let's listen to what this clown says. Again, I mentioned it. They can't get troops in the boots. They can't get people to join the RCMP. And the cops themselves are saying, you're going down the wrong path there, you authoritarian asshat. And still they're saying, well, you can do it anyway. Because they are so used to bullying people, but they don't realize that they've never had to work in their life. They've had other people do all the heavy lifting for them. So they have no idea what it is to actually enforce the law and what it takes to work in a society, in a community, and working with people in a community to make them feel safe and know that they can come to you for help. And you've completely destroyed that over the past 10 years, Liberals. Absolutely destroyed that. And the cops don't want it destroyed further by people being afraid to call the cops to come and help them if criminals show up, or in regards to going after law-abiding citizens. So even the law-abiding citizens was like, I'm not going to trust the cops with anything now. They're just going to be fascist stormtroopers for gun grab Gary, which is what the police really don't want to be called. And they will be called that for anyone who shows up having a gun. Yeah. have fun at Christmas dinner, you gun-grabbing fascists. They don't want to be called that. Like, let's listen to this video.
Canadians have confidence in this program when so many police forces are saying that they want absolutely nothing to do with this.
Thank you very much. Look, different police services have made decisions on their participation on the recovery of these firearms, and I respect their decisions. What will not be optional for police services is the enforcement of these laws as of October the 31st of this year. So we anticipate and we expect every police service to abide by and to uphold the rule of law in Canada, which involves ensuring that those critical components of the criminal code are implemented and are upheld. As per the program that on the collection component of this program, we do have a plan in place for most of Canada involving the RCMP. In the case of Quebec, we have certainly the Quebec who are partners in this. We have additionally a number of smaller police services as well who are taking part, and we anticipate that we will be able to complete the program as anticipated.
The majority of police forces and provinces say they don't agree with this program.
So let me look. The majority of police services initially, when the bill was introduced, were supportive of a program such as this. The Mass Casualty Commission report in Nova Scotia specifically asked for measures around ensuring that assault-style firearms are off our streets. What I can tell you is that there is a very strong lobby, a lobby that really has very little boundaries, and they have been aggressive in their attack on this program. They have tried to undermine police services that wanted to be part of the program. They have tried to undermine politicians that have wanted to be, that are supportive of the program. But at the end of the day, I think Canadians have spoken. Over 26,000 Canadians have registered, have enrolled in the program.
There's a lot of guns in Canada. A lot of people have guns. 26,000 doesn't sound like a lot.
Well, if I may finish, there are 26,000 individuals who have put their names forward and who have registered, and there are over 51,000 firearms that they have declared. So I believe, and I'm cautiously optimistic, that we have another week to go. And during this week, I encourage and urge every single Canadian to ensure that they enroll in the program. What I will say is, as I said initially, being part of this voluntary program is strictly voluntary. But what is not voluntary is compliance under the Act, which as of October the 31st will be illegal for individuals to hold on to these prohibited firearms.
So again, how do they expect to enforce this? They just expect the enforcement to happen. Oh, so I think we're just about ready to start. Is he still having a statement? No, still statements by members. Or is it?
In the G7. If the Prime Minister is looking for someone to blame, all he needs to do is economy is Will Baker
deal to this country, and I will continue to represent this community in Ottawa and ensure that my community is a big part of our country's history.
Lake Eastman. Mr. Speaker, these Liberals are failing Canadian workers, farmers, and businesses. The Prime Minister promised he would have a trade deal done 9 months ago, but we're still waiting. He isn't even willing to sit at the negotiating table. While he dithers and delays, Canada has lost over 100,000 jobs in the first 2 months of this year alone. Our economy is shrinking. We have the second highest unemployment, the highest household debt, and the highest food inflation in the G7. If the Prime Minister is looking for someone to blame, all he needs to do is look in the mirror. His government is running the biggest deficit in history, blocking growth on anti-energy laws, added more bureaucratic red tape to construction projects, and imposed an industrial carbon tax that punishes Canadian farmers and manufacturers. And all this Liberal mismanagement results in our economy shrinking, jobs disappearing, and our national debt rapidly growing out of control. If the Prime Minister won't take blame, will he just get out of the way so Canadians can get back to work?
Well, this has been an ongoing theme, hasn't it? On asking the Liberals to get out of the way, which really, they would just like them to stop spending money we don't have and taxing the hell out of us. But they won't. No, they keep insisting that the taxes are minimal. Hardly any effect on your life whatsoever. I got to hear Julie Van Druzen say once more that the carbon tax, according to the study, costs next to nothing for food. But you actually have farmers on the conservative side sitting in the house telling you, you're full of shit. I run a farm. I can tell you it costs me money. But no, they just lie nonstop. Now, are we going to be starting this fiasco yet, or is it just going to be another statements by members? Oh, we're starting. Okay.
Exposed. Yesterday, the Auditor General exposed the catastrophic management of 3 Liberal ministers on immigration. Liberal immigration ministers have ignored proof of massive fraud in 150,000 cases of fake foreign students. They've investigated 3% of cases and abandoned half of those because these alleged fraudsters did not answer their emails. Can the Prime Minister rise in the House of Commons and fire these incompetent Liberal ministers? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We support the recommendations of the Auditor General, and we have been acting since 2025. 100% of cases flagged by institutions are followed up on, and we are investigating high-risk cases. The results are clear. The controls and verifications are enforced. The number of students has dropped by more than 60% that are coming in. We are reestablishing the integrity of the system, and we are mastering it. Thank you. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The question was for the Prime Minister, who is here in Ottawa today. He needs to take responsibility for these 3 incompetent ministers. They are current ministers, the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Heritage, and the Minister of Immigration, who have all been part of this situation. They've all been incredibly incompetent. Over 150,000 potentials of fraud cases that have not been investigated. Just 3% of cases have been investigated. Most of those have been abandoned. Will the Prime Minister take personal responsibility for his current incompetent cabinet and fire these ministers? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Identity and Canadian Culture. Mr. Speaker, I got into politics because I love my country, Canada. The opposition member got into politics because he had tendinitis. He thinks that Canadians are losers, and he thinks that his job is terrible. He's on video saying that. You know, that's not responsible, and that's why we support the Prime Minister.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, with that kind of incompetent, incoherent answer, it's not hard to understand how that minister failed to investigate 97% of the 150,000 suspected cases of fraud in the international student program. Mr. Speaker, not only that, of the 3% that he did have investigated, they abandoned half of those because the suspected fraudster did not respond to investigators' emails. Mr. Speaker, this is the current Liberal government. Will the current Liberal Prime Minister take responsibility, fire that minister, the Justice Minister, and the Immigration Minister?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
If he wants to talk about incompetence in politics, he need look no further than the mirror. Listen to the approach that he takes on Canada-U.S. relations, saying it's not the Americans' fault, it's ours, we're stupid. While his caucus colleagues go down to south to say that we're throwing a hissy fit up here. You want to see incompetence? Let's look at the Conservative leader's statements, calling the RCMP leadership despicable and calling on his political opponents to be jailed. We will move forward with thoughtful policy that ensures our immigration system moves with integrity while we welcome newcomers who can help grow the economy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, this Prime Minister is rewarding and encouraging incompetence by putting the single worst immigration minister in Canadian history in as the new Minister of Justice. That minister caused a 300% increase in population growth. Now we know that there were hundreds of thousands of potentially fraudulent cases that he refused to have investigated. 97% of the cases of potential fraud were uninvestigated, and half of the remaining 3% were abandoned because the fraudsters did not respond to emails. Will the Prime Minister take responsibility for these incompetent Liberals and fire them now?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me repeat for that member and his entire caucus. As I said, since 2025, 100% of the discrepancies reported were followed up. And they were followed up 100% since 2025 with the high-risk investigated. The Auditor General confirmed improvements took place. IRCC has tightened its approach, and we have control over the student visas. The numbers prove it. Thank you.
Yeah. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Okay, now the mystery is resolved. We have only 3% of the 150,000 cases of suspected fraud were investigated at all. Half of those investigations were abandoned because the alleged fraudster didn't respond to their email. But now we learned they have followed up with another email, Mr. Speaker, and the threat is clear. If there is no response to that email, there will be yet another email, Mr. Speaker. With this kind of total incompetence under the leadership of the current Liberal Prime Minister, why won't he fire these 3 ministers so we can get the system?
The honourable minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me tell Canadians and this member and his caucus that the report examined 18 months. The government had already initiated improvement to the system way before the audit started. The Auditor General confirmed that the system is tightened, the student visas have been examined, improvements has taken place. Since 2025, 100% of referrals from institutions were examined. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I admit it's unfair for the Prime Minister, the Liberal Prime Minister, to force that minister to respond for all of the mistakes of her 2 predecessors, whom he has promoted. But it really is the illusion of this Prime Minister. He refuses to stand and answer questions today, although he is in Ottawa, on the fact that we have the only shrinking economy in the G7. The worst food price inflation in the G7. The worst household debt in the G7, the worst housing costs in the G7, 100,000 jobs lost in the first 2 months of this year. Will the Prime Minister have the courage to stand up now and defend his terrible Liberal track?
The Honourable.
What is this, Terry Springer? Steve needs to stand on the call.
Yeah. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We will stand up every day and be proud of the Liberal track record in standing up for Canada and building Canada. And what the Leader of the Opposition has been treated to today is a minister who is in control of this file, who has seen immigration levels, student visas go down. In fact, for the first time ever, Mr. Speaker, last year Canada dropped 100,000 population. Canada has one of the best immigration systems in the country, in the world, and people are proud of it. People stand by it, and
the honourable member for Beloit-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, we are following what's happening at the Supreme Court very closely this week. Some of the speakers are excellent. Some are somewhere between stupid and insulting. While there's still time, will the government recognize that it should say to its lawyers to cancel what they have said and ask its lawyers to not plea against Quebec. The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question. It's very important to clarify the federal government's position. We have an opportunity and an obligation to defend the Constitution. It's possible to defend the French language and the Constitution at the same time. What is happening before the Supreme Court of Canada? Well, that's the appropriate place to have that discussion. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Since, Mr. Speaker, the Quebec National Assembly passed a state secularism law in 2019. Whether you like it or not, it is legitimate. Is the government telling Quebecers that the federal parliament is superior and has authority over the Parliament of Quebec? Is Liberal Canada, does it think that it's the boss of Quebec? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I have a hard time understanding the question from my colleague. First of all, we are in a state of law where it's possible for groups and citizens to challenge laws before the courts, and that can go all the way to the Supreme Court. That's what's happening right now with Bill 21, Mr. Speaker. But if he's saying that the federal government is using the disallowance power, it hasn't been used since 1943. I wasn't even born the last time that happened. I don't think he was born either the last time that happened. We have no intention of using the disallowance law. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, I'd be lying if I said that I was surprised that he doesn't understand. Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Canada imposed a constitution on Quebec. Quebec did not sign that constitution, and it's never accepted it. And now today we're being said that according to that constitution and its charter, which was put in place against Quebec, that Ottawa is the boss. Does Liberal Canada, which is going against Quebec at the Supreme Court, say that the National Assembly of Quebec should submit to the rest of Canada? Is Quebec a colony of Canada? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think that Quebecers are very proud to live in a state of law where you can challenge laws. That's what's being done by Quebecers before the Supreme Court right now, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to let the Supreme Court do its work. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
You can add the Auditor General's name to the long list of people who know the Immigration Minister is not very good at her job. She already has no idea how to address the millions of expired visa holders in Canada, and a new report found that of over 150,000 fraudulent immigration cases, less than 3% were investigated. There's no accountability for the fraudsters and no accountability for anyone who broke the system. People like her and the last two immigration ministers still get to sit in cabinet. So I have the question again, when are they getting fired?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I said a couple of times already this morning, since 2025, 100% of discrepancies that were referred by the educational institutions to IRCC received follow-ups. The high-risk ones were fully investigated. The results are clear. We welcome the recommendation. We will continue to improve our systems, but the Auditor General made it clear we had already started to implement all of those prior to her commencing the report.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
We get it, Mr. Speaker. They got follow-up emails, but it's even her Liberal colleagues who are telling the CBC that she's not fit for the job. But none of that seems to matter to the Liberal Prime Minister, because this is how it works in Liberal offices. In Liberal Ottawa, I should say. Step 1, you fail at your job. Step 2, you get a promotion. Step 3, you start the cycle again. That's what happened to the last immigration minister, who's the culture minister, and the one before that, who's the attorney general. So based on how it all works here, I have a different question for the Prime Minister. When is he giving the current immigration minister her next promotion?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Step 1, you have a 25-point lead in the polls. Step 2, you have an election. Step 3, you lose your seat. Why is that leader of the opposition still in his seat?
member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Under this Liberal Prime Minister, the Liberals' immigration crisis is worse than ever before. They're giving sweetheart sentences to non-citizen sexual assaulters instead of deporting them. Bogus asylum claimants are getting better health care than Canadians. And there's over 150,000 cases of student permit fraud. There are millions of non-citizens with no legal reason to be in Canada, but there's no accountability. 3 of the most incompetent and destruction immigration ministers in Canadian history are still in cabinet. Why?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected this government last year because they know that this government has a plan. Our plan has results. It is not based on a script as they do on the other side. Over the last year, we've reduced temporary residents by more than half. We brought the asylum numbers by more than a third. We've refocused economic immigration like never before it's been done. Canadians can see that this government is focused and has a plan. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, let's look at the plan. 150,000 cases of student permit fraud. Under this Prime Minister, this Liberal Prime Minister, they just bought an entire hotel for asylum claimants with tax dollars. Bogus asylum claimants are getting better health care than Canadian seniors who have paid their whole life into the system. Yet that immigration minister still has her job. Why?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, here they go again. Here they go again, Mr. Speaker. This immigration minister has brought a situation under control, a situation where last year Canada's population actually declined. Canada's immigration system is admired, as our country is, the world over, Mr. Speaker. And this immigration minister is executing on a clear plan to bring temporary residents of this country down. And shame on that member for picking on Ukrainian war refugees for coming to this country and getting treated.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, according to the Auditor General, tens of thousands of people have come into the country and have stayed in the country without proper verification. The government is unable to say who amongst the foreign students is respecting the rules, who has left the country, who has stayed illegally. In other words, the Liberals have opened the door, but they have no idea who's come in. Who is in the country? We don't know. It's time for the Prime Minister to accept responsibility for promoting immigration ministers who created this chaos. When is he going to fire these 3 ministers? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The temporary status is exactly that. It's temporary. And that's not new. Under our plan, Canada has set clear goals when it comes to temporary residence and extensions. We are respecting our plan. And at the end of your permit, you have to leave. That expectation is clear. We will continue to meet our goals and we will apply our rules. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. After 10 years, this government has completely lost control of immigration. The proof is in the Auditor General's report yesterday. It confirms that of all the people who've asked for student visas, 150,000 problematic cases have been identified. But the government has only investigated 4,000 cases. The rest have just been, forgotten, lost in the cracks. And we don't even know who has stayed in the country without a permit. When will the Prime Minister fire this minister and the 2 former immigration ministers for incompetence? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. Mr. Speaker, while we were reducing immigration, the Leader of the Opposition was crisscrossing the country promising visas to anyone. It's ridiculous. You don't need an Auditor General to verify the incompetence of the Leader of the Opposition and many members of his caucus. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a proof of irresponsibility from the opposition. I think that they should be ashamed. Just look at the videos on Twitter, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to the Auditor General, the immigration system for foreign students is completely out of control. In 1 year, as many as 150,000 fake foreign student requests for visas have been made, and less than 3% of those were verified by the government. It's not complicated. The Liberals have completely lost control of the immigration system, and they continue to hand out visas left, right, and centre. What people in Quebec want is an immigration system that respects our capacity to welcome and integrate newcomers to the Quebec nation. Can the Prime Minister please explain how he is keeping ministers who are doing more harm than good in their positions? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, our government's plan is working. The plan is to be in control of immigration, knowing that Canadians trust us to maintain that control. We have been able to reduce immigration levels. For the first time in 50 years, we have lowered population growth in Canada. And we are going to work with the government of Quebec, and the Quebec lieutenant spoke with the government of Quebec last week because we have to have immigration under control, but we also have to be able to help businesses who also have problems with a labour shortage. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, 3 provinces are joining with Quebec to call for more powers when it comes to appointing judges. After Quebec, Ontario, Alberta and Saskatchewan now want Superior Court judges to be chosen from their lists of candidates. They also want to have their word to say on the choice of Supreme Court judge appointments. Quebec and the provinces have had enough of seeing the Prime Minister and his friends get involved in judge appointments to help Liberals. Will the government respect what the provinces are asking for? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for the question. It's very important to understand that we have a process that works today. We receive recommendations from an independent committee. We have opportunities to discuss those proposals with our counterparts in the provinces and territories. It's a process that works, and we don't need to change the process now. If my counterparts want to participate in the processes, they just have to give me a call. It's as simple as that. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, Quebec and 3 other provinces want to choose their own judges because the process in Ottawa is tainted. It's tainted red. Remember the Liberalist, that partisan tool that the Liberals used to appoint Liberals. And remember that among judges who had previously donated to political parties, 76% of those were Liberals. Remember in 2019 in New Brunswick, 5 of the 6 judges appointed were the neighbor of a Liberal minister, the brother-in-law's wife, and 3 of their donors. Will the government include Quebec and the provinces who want to be involved in it in an impartial process for appointing judges? The Honourable Minister. Well, now, Mr. Speaker, there is a process that works. The process is independent. It benefits from recommendations of the committee that's already in place. It's important to ensure that every candidate has the ability to participate in the court system.
Provinces and territories to take their feedback into the process and make talented appointments. Regardless of the political history of the candidate, we want the best people for the job, and that's what the process is providing.
Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal incompetence in our immigration system keeps getting worse. Yesterday, the Auditor General revealed widespread fraud in the Liberals' international student program. Even worse, of the 150,000 suspected fraud cases, the department reviewed less than 3% of them. And this is only one part of the Liberal immigration mess. So, did the Liberal Prime Minister fix this? Not at all. Besides keeping his terrible minister in place, he promoted the last 2 incompetent ministers. They're raining down destruction as his Justice Minister and Culture Minister. Why are 3 of the most incompetent and destructive immigration ministers still in his cabinet?
Why?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that question has been asked several times and answered several times. I wonder that if that member, when he was growing up and dreaming of being in the Parliament of Canada, is now having a reckoning with the fact that he's being handed some question by some 24-year-old in the leader's office, and now is being required to stand up in the House of Commons and read it again.
True story.
That is what's going on here.
Perfectly all right. Perfectly all right. The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, unlike that member, I don't work for the PMO. The truth is, the immigration minister is so incompetent that her own Liberal colleagues told CBC she wasn't fit for the job, and the mess created by the previous two is self-evident. Yet, Liberals are pushing ahead with hundreds of thousands of new foreign work permits with no plans to remove the millions of expiring foreign visa holders who remain in Canada, all while Canadian youth face 14% unemployment rates and non-permanent residents outnumber unemployed Canadians. This insanity has to stop. Why are three of the most incompetent and destructive immigration ministers in Canadian history still in his cabinet?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we quite literally just passed a bill over the obstruction of the Conservatives that permits us to reduce the number of asylum seekers in Canada, just as we have reduced the temporary population of Canada, first time ever, last year. And I would repeat to this member, I work for the people of Canada. He does not work for the Leader of the Opposition. He should stand up and read his own question instead of the questions coming from 24-year-olds in the Leader of the Opposition's office.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
153,000 student visa cases flagged for fraud. Less than 3% probed. 92% of fraudsters wave through for shots at work permits, residency, and asylum. The Auditor General has exposed an immigration system so broken it can't enforce its own rules. But instead of fixing it, they're going to issue even more permits. Even Liberals say this immigration minister has to go. It's well past time to clean house. So why is the Prime Minister still keeping not one, not two, but three failed immigration ministers in his cabinet?
Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, despite the conversation today about the impact of immigration on youth unemployment, I will remind the opposition that even though they enjoy the benefits of something like the Canada Summer Jobs Program and go out and meet those students, they vote against those programs time and time again. So it's a little bit fraudulent, I would say, to meet a youth in their riding, celebrate their opportunity while voting against that very program in this House of Commons.
We'll just have to, I mean, there are a lot of epithets going around today. I think we should maybe refrain from some of them. L'honorable député de Beauce.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, Quebec's regions have run out of patience. The Liberal government's inaction is costing them dearly. Don't just take my word for it. Mayors, business owners, and organizations from Chaudière-Appalaches and across Quebec have come to Ottawa today to sound the alarm. The Liberal Prime Minister promised to lift tariffs on steel. Fail. He created chaos in immigration. Fail. The result, job losses in all our regions. How many more jobs will be lost before the Prime Minister finally keeps his promises to businesses in Beauce? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, my colleague raised a number of cases which are indeed related to tariff-affected sectors, and certainly in Beauce. And we will work through economic development in the Quebec regions with the member. Also, I would be happy if members across the way did more to denounce American tariffs, because clearly the silence seems to be reigning. The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, businesses in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean are here in Ottawa today because they just can't wait any longer. The Liberal Prime Minister was supposed to reach an agreement on aluminum tariffs with the Trump administration. 1 year later, nothing. Meanwhile, 57,000 jobs were lost in Quebec in February. Aluminum workers are paying the price. Contracts are vanishing. Uncertainty is setting in. The regions are bearing the brunt of this. Why is the Prime Minister letting down our workers and businesses in the regions? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, I will have an opportunity to also meet with the same people as my colleague, or whom he will meet later today, and I have an opportunity to work. I had an opportunity to work with him last week. Why? Because we do want to help the workers in the steel sector. We know they're subject to unjustified tariffs. We are there to protect them. We are working with a number of businesses in the region to support them. We are having those conversations, and we are taking decisions with respect to significant investments at Rio Tinto. We are here for the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region.
For Labrador. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On March 12th, the Prime Minister was in Yellowknife to announce an historic plan to defend, build, and transform the North, backed by more than $40 billion in investment. It's a question I wrote myself. It's very important. Could the Minister of Indigenous Relations please update the House on why this new plan is so critical to keeping the North moving forward? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
For decades, communities across the Northwest Territories have been clear that
I couldn't hear the minister, so I'll let the minister start over. I'll let the minister start over again.
For decades, communities across the Northwest Territories have been clear. The Mackenzie Valley Highway is essential for their future. This project will finally connect remote communities, lower the cost of goods, unlock critical minerals, and create real opportunities for local businesses. We're also advancing the Tolson Hydroelectric Project and the Arctic Economic and Security Corridor with Indigenous partners. With more than $40 billion in investments, we're building a stronger, more resilient, and a more connected North. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cloverdale-Langley City.
Straight from the heart. I spoke with a man in my riding who works at a local cabinet manufacturing shop. He works hard and pays his taxes. But his hours were cut because students with expired visas take his shifts for cash under the table. This is the direct result of a system the previous Liberal immigration minister let spiral out of control, where international students came without proper oversight and thousands overstayed their enforcement. Will the Liberal Prime Minister admit that this mess started under his previous minister, and Canadians like my constituent are now paying the price?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
What the member alleges is hard to prove, actually. But what I will say is that what we can prove is the investments that we're making in workers, the investments that we're making in major projects, the investments that we're making in defence lead to hundreds of thousands of jobs. And you know who's happy about that, Mr. Speaker? Unions, workers all across this country who are eagerly looking forward to building Canada strong under this Prime Minister.
Honourable Member for Cloverdale-Langley City.
What we're seeing today didn't come from one mistake. It came from years of mismanagement by multiple Liberal immigration ministers. One opened the floodgates without oversight. Another failed to enforce the rules. And now the current minister is continuing with more permits with millions of visas sitting expired or unchecked. Even Liberal MPs have said this minister isn't up to the job. So through you, Mr. Speaker, I ask the Prime Minister, why are three of the most ineffective immigration ministers in Canadian history still sitting around the cabinet table while Canadians face the consequences of their failures?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, many members on this side of the House have answered that question throughout this entire question period. So what I would say, Mr. Speaker, is that the number of repetitive questions from the Conservative benches are up. Mr. Speaker, you know what's down? The number of Conservative MPs sitting on that side of the House.
The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of disastrous Liberal policies, the immigration crisis is worse now than ever before. The Auditor General's latest findings revealed widespread fraud and dangerous gaps in the Liberals' oversight of foreign student work permits. In spite of this, the Liberals are pushing ahead with hundreds of thousands of new foreign work permits with no plan to remove the millions of existing expired foreign visa holders who remain in Canada. The Liberal Prime Minister needs to take responsibility for promoting the ministers who created this chaos. Why are 3 of the most incompetent and destructive ministers in Canadian history still in his cabinet?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, we're not going to take advice on jobs, on the economy, from a leader who's never worked one day in it. On this side of the House, we're going to continue to build the strongest economy in the G7. At home, we've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. Abroad, we're signing new trade deals. Diversifying markets will result in thousands of jobs, tens of billions of dollars in investment. Time for that leader, that party to stop the same questions, the same rhetoric. Help us build Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, successive Liberal immigration ministers have destroyed our once respected immigration system. Yesterday, the Auditor General revealed that the Liberals only reviewed 2.6% of 153,000 suspected cases of foreign student work permit fraud. The Liberals have allowed hundreds of IRGC agents into the country. Yesterday, the Immigration Minister practiced the art of deflection. It seems that when it comes to the safety of Canadians, that the Liberal ministers play a game of who, me? Yes, you. Not me, then who? Why are some of the most incompetent and destructive ministers in Canadian history still in cabinet?
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of young people in this country are ready to work, and we're making sure that the opportunities are there for them. Through the Canada Summer Job, we have tens of thousands of young people who are getting their job for the first time, and they're getting experience right in their communities. And we're investing $635 million in student work placements so that post-secondary students can build their careers and jobs right here in this country. And that's what we're focused on. We're focused on youth that can gain the skills for the future to build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
Nice job. For Dufferin Caledon.
Let's talk some auto facts. A decade ago, before these Liberals took office, Canadian auto producers produced 2 million vehicles a year. After a decade of their incompetence, that went down to 1.2 million. Now it gets worse, unfortunately, because since this new Prime Minister has taken office, auto exports are down a further 54%. It's a decimation. We've lost the Brampton plant. We've lost Picard. We've lost the Bright Drop facility. We've lost the third shift at Ottawa. And this is all since they announced their so-called new auto policy. When will they realize it's garbage and move to our tariff-free auto pact?
In the interest of fairness, when that word was used before by another member, I expressed disappointment. And so I'll do the same because I want to be consistent. I just don't think that elevates us in the eyes of the public. The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about facts. The proposal by the Conservatives is too little, too late. You know why? They didn't even consult workers when doing it.
That's right.
They actually have no measures for workers in their auto proposals. And actually, Unifor, which represents workers, is against it. Our auto pact, our auto proposal, is actually supported by the Conservative Premier of Ontario.
They said well, not from the top, but I'll give the member a few extra seconds because it was very loud on the left, like it can be very loud at the back on the right. And it's a good way for the chair to learn the names of ridings when members do that, because. Yeah, so we'll give the Honourable Minister a little more time.
So from the top, Mr. Speaker, everyone is in favor of our auto strategy. The Conservative Premier of Ontario, Premier Ford, industry, unions, consumer, everyone. And so why don't they get with the program and get on our side?
The Honourable Member for Dufferin Caledon.
It's actually shocking how uninformed the industry minister is when it comes to the auto strategy. They announced their auto strategy. Auto exports, since they announced it, are down 32%. This is a decimation. The reason this is happening is because there are tariffs on our autos at about 15%. They've been completely incapable of removing the tariffs. They have no plan to remove the tariffs. All they do is talk about something that might happen. We have a plan that's been endorsed by the president of the Oshawa Assembly Plant and the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. Why don't they get on board with a tariff-free auto pact?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, whatever was that? Mr. Speaker, what the Conservatives forgot when thinking of our industry in the auto sector is actually 200,000 workers. Why? Because they forgot about auto parts. And Canada has been leading when it comes to auto parts. We have the 3 biggest companies in the world: Linamar, Martin-Urea, Magna. They forgot to protect the GM engines and transmissions workers in Cambridge. They forgot the Ford engines auto workers in Windsor. They forgot the Honda engine workers in Alliston. They forgot, and I could.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
The Liberals have thrown in the towel on Canada's auto sector. Since 2015, auto production is down by half. Exports are down by 53%, and over 5,000 auto jobs are gone. The Conservatives' Auto Pact will restore tariff-free access to the U.S., doubling auto production here at home. So instead of giving up on our auto sector, will the Liberals stand with our auto workers, support our motion to boost production here in Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
You know, nostalgia is not a strategy. We can't go back to 1965 to a tariff-free auto pact. What has Unifor said about the Conservatives' so-called plan? They said this plan cannot achieve its intended objectives. It is mathematically incorrect, and it may prevent potential future growth in our automotive industry. Unlike them, we actually sit down with the workers and the unions and consult them on the plans and strategies which we lead and move forward on implementing. We've offered liquidity support, financing for them to pivot, adjusted the availability standard for EVs, and much, much more.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, here's what the president of Unifor Local 222 said, and I quote, "Finally, a plan to protect the livelihoods of thousands of Ontario auto workers." Mr. Speaker, under the Liberal plan, production is down, exports are down, job losses are up. Our Conservative plan would double auto production here in Canada. The Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association supports our plan. The local unions support our plan. The auto worker on the assembly line supports our plan. Will they?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
This government has gone on every line of production in the auto sector, and we have the support of workers. But what is clear, and I know the Brampton facility is really important to my colleague. And you know what Unifor, the head of Unifor Canada, Lana Payne, said? Well, actually, their auto proposal is putting the very Stellantis Brampton plan in jeopardy. And also the GM Ingersoll future in jeopardy. Why are they against the auto workers in Brampton and Ingersoll, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's auto sector has been gutted. Production has been cut in half since 2015. Thousands of jobs are gone and exports have collapsed. Now with U.S. tariffs hammering our workers, the Prime Minister has done nothing to stop them. Instead, he's accepted them as permanent while using Canadian tax dollars to subsidize foreign-built vehicles. That's not a plan, that is surrender. Conservatives have put forward a tariff-free auto pact to double production, restore our supply chains, and bring jobs to Canada. Will the Prime Minister stand up for Canadian workers and support our plan, or will he continue with the managed decline of the auto sector, just like the rest of the economy?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and digital innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives want to close their eyes and hope that the tariffs just go away like it's 50 years ago. That's not a plan. That's a fantasy. Even the Globe and Mail said that their plan is straight from the 60s. Sorry, nostalgia is not a plan. We are investing in our auto workers. In fact, Federal Economic Development of Southern Ontario is investing in the parts manufacturers. I visited Kumi in Bradford or A. Burger Precision in Brampton West, conservative ridings. Their voters support our plan. Why don't they open their eyes, stop fantasizing, and support our plan?
The honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, as chair of the Canada-NATO Parliamentary Association, I know that parliamentarians across the Alliance and countries on both sides of the Atlantic are looking to Canada for leadership in new cutting-edge defense technologies and innovation. It is critical that we rearm, rebuild, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces while building up Canadian industry. Can the Minister of National Defence update this House on the critical investments we are making in Canada's defence industry?
Bravo. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, with Canada's first ever defence industrial strategy, we're making major investments to build up Canada's domestic defence industry. Last week alone, we announced a $900 million investment to support drone development and quantum technologies, a $200 million investment in space launch capabilities in Atlantic Canada, a $300 million contract for new modular assault rifles, and over $1.4 billion for domestic ammunition production in Ontario and Quebec. Mr. Speaker, that's a plan we're delivering. It's security, sovereignty, and jobs.
The Honourable member for Calgary Midnapore.
The Auditor General dropped another scathing report on the modernization of the pay system. This pay system is now costing taxpayers over $4.2 billion, but this government fails to learn from the Phoenix fiasco, costing millions of dollars more for taxpayers every single year. This government has had an entire decade. When will they fix the system and stop wasting taxpayers' money?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Speaker, and quite to the contrary, what the Auditor General has mentioned is that Canadians will get value for their money and that we're moving cautiously. And by the way, I want to thank the Auditor General for her report, and we're accepting the three recommendations she's made to make sure that we get this right, because public servants deserve to have an exact pay on time, and that's exactly what we're moving forward with this new pay system. Thank you.
Member for Calgary Midnapore.
Well, public servants are actually scared to retire because they don't trust the pay system. And it's no wonder there are over 230,000 transactions that are backlogged, and many of those are more than a year old. This government has had 10 years, and now they want to fast-track the old system to the new system. When will they fix the system and give public servants confidence in both their paychecks and their retirements?
The Honourable Minister.
L'honorable did something happen? I don't know. I didn't see anything. L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Yes. Okay, I missed something here, but thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the member for her question. It's an important question. Public servants deserve to have an exact pay and on time. And as far as the backlog is concerned, I'm happy to report that we've reduced by 50% the backlog over the course of the last 2 years. And we have learned from the mistakes by over Phoenix that we need to move step by step in a cautious way, in a prudent way, to make sure that we get this transition right. And this transition we will get right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Yellowhead.
I'll always be worried the government will come looking for something. I can never trust the information I get from them. These are the words of a public servant afraid to retire because of a broken pay system this Liberal government refuses to fix. And 133,000 employees are in the same situation. The Auditor General confirmed billions have been spent with no clear plan to fix the backlog, meaning the new system will start with the same flawed data. How can the Canadians trust the government to fix the mess they've had a decade to address?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, and first I want to thank the Auditor General for her report, and we accept her recommendations. We're working on the 3 that she's put forward, and one of which is, of course, to make sure that we reduce the backlog in a timely way, which is exactly what we're doing. We've reduced by 50% over the course of the last 2 years, and as we are transitioning to a new pay system, Mr. Speaker, we're making sure that we're going step by step in incremental pieces so that we get this transition right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, as digital capabilities evolve, so do crimes and threats to our national security. For decades, law enforcement agencies across the country have asked for updated tools to combat crimes like extortion, child exploitation, auto theft, and organized crime. Can the Minister of Public Safety elaborate on the importance of lawful access measures and Bill C-22 to keep Canadians safe?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and let me thank the member for Markham Unionville for his hard work and advocacy, Mr. Speaker. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, law enforcement across Canada have been asking for additional tools, the most important one being lawful access in order to ensure the safety and security of Canadians. Through Bill C-22, law enforcement will have the tools they need to combat childhood sexual exploitation, extortion, human trafficking, money laundering, and more, Mr. Speaker. I urge all members in this House to support Bill C-22 and to ensure that law enforcement have the tools that they need to keep Canadians safe.
Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, the recreational fishing industry is facing a review of the salmon allocation policy that could destroy their industry and strip away Canada's historic principle of common property resource access. The recreational fishing industry supports over 9,000 jobs, generates $600 million direct income, and contributes over $1.2 billion in GDP in British Columbia. Will the minister commit to protecting historical access to common property resources for recreational fishing, or will the Liberals let yet another vital industry, coastal communities, and a way of life on Vancouver Island die?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
The policy that the member referenced was last put in place in 1999. So, of course, we took 6 years, starting in 2018, to review the terms, 1 year of consultation, finished the end of January. No decision has been made.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
In the middle of a national housing crisis, the Liberals has quietly pulled funding for the Right Fit program, a program that directly connects wheelchair users with accessible housing. With just days' notice, funding is being cut as of April 1st, leaving some of the most vulnerable Canadians, people with disabilities, without support, without housing options, and without answers. At a time when accessible housing is already in critically short supply, how can the housing minister justify abandoning wheelchair users in such a cruel manner and cutting the very programs designed to help them find a place to live?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from Vancouver East for the question. We are obviously very concerned about those who are homeless right now or are utilizing the programs that we put in place through Reaching Home and the Unsheltered Encampment Initiative. That program, the Unsheltered Encampment Initiative, was a 2-year program. We've communicated very clearly the transition over to Reaching Home, which continues for several more years. We want to make sure we're providing the services. We are putting $1 billion into supportive and transitional housing as well, working with provinces to make sure we can support people who need that housing the most.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, the illegal war waged by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu in the Middle East is inflicting devastating consequences on civilians, especially children. The humanitarian and environmental toll is immense, and the economic fallout is global, driving up gas and fertilizer prices, disrupting critical supplies like helium used in MRIs, and threatening pharmaceutical supply chains. Canadians who are already struggling with the cost of living will feel these impacts. Will the Prime Minister ensure Canada is not complicit with our arms exports in the killings of civilians and take a clear stance against this horrific war?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank my honourable colleague for raising this very important point. And Canada is also deeply concerned about the humanitarian toll that the war is taking, including our concern about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is threatening global energy security and economic stability. As we have emphasized, Canada's focus is on humanitarianism, is on de-escalation, is on ensuring the unimpeded flow of energy and supplies through the Strait of Hormuz. And we urge all parties to de-escalate the conflict, and we will continue to work with G7 and like-minded countries. Thank you.
I'd like to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Lana Popham, Minister of Agriculture and Food for the province of British Columbia. And the Honourable Bowen Ma, Minister of Infrastructure for the province of British Columbia.
All right, that's it. I guess there's no points of order. Let's make sure I get the sound off there. There we go. All right, well, let's do a quick review. Looks like they spent most of their time on the immigration fraud that was brought up yesterday, and now spent most of today's question period on, to the point where the Liberals were exhausted in not having a non-answer to give, that they just simply resorted to casting aspersions. Yeah, they just resorted to calling the Conservatives names. Oh, this leader is that. Well, maybe these people should be doing that, but would never answer the question. Would never deal with the results on the ground, because the entire exercise today in question period was to embarrass the Liberals and their massive failure in immigration, which has affected and destroyed everything in Canada, and people are seeing it. People are seeing it all the time, and Liberals, I think, are running out of excuses, which is why they resorted to personal attacks. What else did they talk about? The Notwithstanding clause, of course. Some funny comments there by the Bloc Quebecois leader. And let's see, appointing judges. Yes, we talked about that before question period sat. And of course, the Liberals love the way the system works now, right? Because they get to appoint who they want. They know that they will have Liberal-friendly judges. We have known this has been a problem forever. Yeah. Last time the Conservatives were in, they didn't do anything about it, right? Because they, too, love the fact that they could just pick their own judges, right? And that's what happens when you're ideologically compromised. And so when the Conservatives are not talking about a certain thing over and over again, not talking about it, like, the fact that Mark Carney has sealed COVID-19 vaccine harms and injury records for 15 years, the fact that you guys stay away from that makes us think that you don't care about all those abuse victims. Better get on that, Conservatives. It doesn't matter if you appoint judges, if they're all in cahoots with the same abuse. And auto economy was brought up again. And I see Kyle Seaback used the word garbage, and they're going to be using it a lot because, yes, Canada has been faced with a lot of Liberal garbage. We've got to call it out for what it is. And the pay system, which is so actually, this reminds me, this is the first day since the new year, the first question period ever, that old age security program software issue was not brought up. But they did bring up this other software issue as they ready to roll out yet another software debacle for the pay system. Right, so even if they did concurrent activities, the existing pay system that never got fixed, all the billions of dollars they threw away at the Phoenix pay system. And I always said it, you could have just used that money to hire people to handwrite checks. You could have hired people for the next 50 years just to do handwrite checks, yeah, or print them out or whatever, instead of having a software system. No, let's just keep throwing good money after bad. So Of course, knowing that there was this huge software fiasco with the OAS, old age security, and that we still don't know if they've caught up. Maybe they have caught up, and that's why they didn't bring it up, but I doubt it, because there was 85,000. Now, the office was saying they were working through the backlog. I doubt they have fixed the backlog, even if they had it down to half last week. There's no way they could have fixed it that fast. And fishing rights. This is not the first time that it has been brought up about coastal access to areas. And as you can see, the Liberals were very, very slippery in their response by saying we have not made a decision yet, which tells us that they're going to take away those fishing rights, right? Because right now, the far left coast is a complete mess. People are fleeing. People don't know what the hell's happening with their properties because it's just been handed over to the natives. And of course, there are always a couple of useless questions by the NDP, one regarding a housing fund that was only slated for 2 years. And of course, the NDP had today say something about the war in Iran because, as we know, they fully support the Islamists in everything they do, and they will ignore the crimes that the Islamists have done to their own Persian people since 1978, after they forcibly took over. Like, you know, NDP, you are the party of the LGBTQ+ alphabet soup, you know, and the Iranians hang gays from cranes. Like, why are you even bothering? You had one question, dude, to ask in Parliament, and you could ask something that would have made something better for Canada. And as you can see, the Liberals are moving Canada into a defense economy. That's right. Canada's going to turn into a military arms munition provider. Yes, that's what they're gearing our country to be, is just to start rolling out tanks and guns and ammunition. Right. So why are the Liberals investing in all that? Right. And why are the boomers? Why are the El Bozos okay with that? You know, because the Liberals have always been anti-war, but yet here they are building this huge economic war machine, using your tax dollars to build it, by the way, and then giving their contracts to their friends. Oh, well, that concludes our no answer period for today. Thank you all for coming out. If you're new to the show, please like, share, subscribe. We have videos that we put out. Well, we put one out, I think, on immigration, because we have a few files to add from yesterday's questioning period as well. And of course, we also put out a new intro every day for the no answer period. And we'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for second breakfast. Join us there if you can. Thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate you. And I want to make sure I get the out so properly. Yes, there we are. Adios.
While allocating resources to purchase an entire hotel for asylum seekers. What a dumpster fire. Is the minister content putting fraudsters in the driver's seat of Canada's immigration system?
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Speech yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
The Minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears.
It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
All of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Know that this government has their back and we will continue to do it. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Deficits are driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what much garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
There was some very unparliamentary language that we heard today.
Sets us up well for the new world order.
Exporting vehicles to Europe. Mr. Speaker, more vehicles were stolen in Canada last year, including 2 of the justice ministers, than were exported to Europe last year. We actually have a plan. It's a plan to get tariff-free access to the United States. It will boost auto production. It is supported by Unifor Local 222 said, finally a common sense plan to restore auto production. Why don't they get on board and stop with this managed decline?
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
My comment by telling the truth that the answer was bovine excrement.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about the new cohort that's being hired. Is that part of the 1,000 that were promised, or the 3,400 that we lost, Mr. Speaker? The Liberals can't distinguish between the two. Let's look at the stats. Violent crime up 55%, failure. Sexual assault up 76%, failure. Gun crime up 130%, failure. Extortion up 330%, failure. Mr. Speaker, the only thing that's going down are the number of police officers in Canada. Why can't these Liberals get their acts together and hire the police they promised?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I really feel sad for that member who always sees our cup half empty. We have a plan. We have